Welcome, everybody, to the Week 5 Injury Report show. On the show, we're going to discuss all the fantasy relevant injuries going into Week 5. We are going to only discuss the fantasy relevant ones. So if you feel I missed something, hit it up down in the comments. Let me or ask me the question. I'll get back to you on it. Most importantly, hit that subscribe button. Show us some love. And we will go ahead and get into the injury news for this week. We'll start with the New York Jets versus Minnesota Vikings. Remember, this is a London game, so get your lineup set before you wake up tomorrow morning because that's going to be an early start. The only fantasy somewhat relevant injury in this game is TJ Hawkinson. They opened up his practice window this week, but he will not be playing. So we'll have to wait another week to see if we can get Hawk out there and see if he can light up the tight end world a little bit. Moving on to the Baltimore Ravens, Cincinnati Bengals. No real fantasy relevant injuries in that game, along with the Carolina Panthers and Chicago Bears game. Neither one of those have any fantasy relevant injuries. So we'll move right into the Indianapolis Colts and Jacksonville Jaguars. In this game, you got Anthony Richardson, oblique injury. He's going into the weekend doubtful. So you're probably going to see Joe Flacco. So good week to start most of that Indianapolis offense. When you're talking about Michael Pittman, Josh Downs, Trey Sermon, they have a really good matchup against Jacksonville, and Flacco has proven he can come in and make the pieces around them fantasy relevant. Jonathan Taylor also ankle out this week. This could be a multi-week injury, something to keep an eye on. High ankle sprains seem to bug wide receivers and running backs more than the other positions. Tight end position for this game, Evan Ingram. Hamstring, listed as questionable, but recent report came out, said he's probably not on track to play again this week. So we'll have to wait another week for Evan Ingram. And moving on to the Buffalo Bills and Houston Texans. Khalil Shakir out for this week with an ankle injury. Look for Dalton Kincaid to kind of pick up that over the middle role and hopefully have a better week and live up to what he's been drafted at. Joe Mixon, ankle out again this week. Dameon Pierce also hamstring questionable, but they activated Taylor from up again. So I would lean to say Dameon Pierce probably won't be active this week, but it's something to keep an eye on because if he is, it'd be interesting to see what the split is between him and Cam Akers for this week. So keep an eye on Dameon Pierce, especially if you're a Cam Akers owner, because you'll have a decision to make if he plays this week. Cleveland Browns and Washington Commanders. Nick Chubb practice window opened up this week, but he's still out, so he will not be playing. David Njoku, ankle, limited Wednesday and Friday. He had an off day a scheduled off day Thursday, but he's hoping to play, is what he said. But with both two limited practices and a scheduled off day, I really feel like they're going to play it safe with David Njoku, but if he plays, he should definitely be in your lineup. Noah Brown, a lot of people picked him up off waivers. He's been having some decent weeks, nothing huge, but he could be a bye week filler or a injury filler. He's out this week also with a groin injury, so Diamani Brown maybe might have a decent week. Keep an eye on that. Brian Robinson popped up as a knee and questionable for this week, but recent report just came out probably 10 minutes before I started this. He is good to go for this week. So if you have Brian Robinson, he's full go. So moving on to the Miami Dolphins and New England Patriots. The only injury news I have for this is two activations. You have OBJ was activated this week off of the IR, as well as Kendrick Bourne. Kendrick Bourne is probably the more interesting of the two. It'd be interesting to see how he rolls into that wide receiver room in New England. I don't think OBJ is going to play a huge part in that offense, especially they're already struggling with the big names they have. I don't think he's going to come in and make much of a difference. So nothing too relevant there. Arizona Cardinals, San Francisco 49ers. Only two I have to report in this are both the tight ends. Trey McBride popped up on the injury report yesterday after clearing it for concussion protocol, but he popped up with ribs and is now questionable. So it's something to watch leading up to the game, but not something you want to hear as a Trey McBride owner as you draft him as a top 5 tight end. George Kittle, also questionable with ribs. I would expect him to play. It takes a lot to sit Kittle, and he played last week, so I don't see it changing this week. Raiders versus Denver Broncos. Devontae Adams, no surprise here, hamstring out again, but I'm pretty sure we've seen him play his last snaps with the Raiders. And Zamir White, groin, he's out this week. Been struggling all year. This is going to be a good test for Alexander Mattison. And if he has a good week, we could see him take over that backfield. Moving on, the Green Bay Packers versus the Rams. Christian Watson, ankle is doubtful. You might as well mark him as out. He's not going to play on a high ankle sprain. They don't have a need to rush him back. They're pretty deep at that young tight end position, or that young wide receiver position. So, but bigger news: Romeo Doubs, 1-game suspension from the team for missing 2 practices this week. This could be huge news if he's disgruntled, and he gives Dontavian Wicks a chance. It's Romeo Doubs may be overtaken by Dontavian Wicks. It's good news for Christian Watson, in my opinion, because if this plays out long enough, then Christian Watson doesn't have to worry about Dontavian Wicks. He'll have that other spot when he comes back. But so Christian Watson, Dontavian Wicks is a huge play this week, in my opinion. He's going to be right there behind Jaden Reed in that offense. 13 targets last week, and that could be what upset Romeo Doubs coming into this week was the target share, and he did not see a whole lot of it. So it'll be interesting to see going forward. The team says that they see the path moving forward with Doubs and that things will get better. But when you have a disgruntled player like this, it normally continues on. So just keep an eye on it. Luke Musgrave, if you still have hope in him, he is questionable this week with an ankle. Tucker Kraft, in my opinion, has pretty much taken over as the lead tight end on that team, even though Musgrave was drafted ahead of him in the same draft. So no surprise there if you don't have him rostered or if he's a waiver on your leagues. Cooper Kupp out this week, obviously with an ankle. They said this was going to happen, that he'd be out for a couple more weeks. Next week, it's something to keep an eye on practice reports and see where he's at. But we may see at least one more week with no Cooper Kupp. New York Giants and Seattle Seahawks. Malik Neighbors out with a concussion. This was kind of disheartening. You were hoping that after it happened, it was a Thursday night game, that he'd have plenty of time to kind of clear the protocol. But I guess it didn't go in his favor. So he'll be out this week with a concussion. Keep an eye on Wan'Dale Robinson. He's already getting a ton of targets, and I don't see that changing going forward. He probably will get even more targets this week. Darius Slayton's also a possible sleeper play, as he'll probably become the deep guy with Malik Neighbors out. Devin Singletary is doubtful with a groin. Tyrone Tracy Truthers, this is the moment we want to see. Want to see how he plays in that lead role and how much he can cut into Devin Singletary's work going forward. Moving on to Dallas Cowboys and Pittsburgh Steelers. Brandon Cooks' knee was announced out earlier this week. However, he was actually just put on the IR here recently. So Jalen Tolbert, a huge waiver wire pickup, could take over that number 2 role going forward. Jalen Warren and Cordell Patterson both out. Warren with a knee, Patterson with an ankle. Najee Harris, if you have him, he should be in your lineups. The Cowboys have been absolutely terrible against the run, and Najee Harris should not have a whole lot of challenge for touches in that backfield this week. So if you have Najee Harris, make sure he's in your lineup. That is all I have. We can quick talk about Chiefs and the Saints. Taysom Hill is out this week with ribs. Kendre Miller has a hamstring injury. Had 2 full practices this week, so it'll be interesting to see if they activate him going into Monday night, and what kind of role he's going to have in this offense and what he looks like with that role. CEH, doubtful this week. They're listing him doubtful with an illness, so should be really Kareem Hunt-led backfield, in my opinion. He took it over last week after Carson Steele fumbled pretty much the first snap of the game. So keep an eye on that backfield going forward. Remember, hit that subscribe button. Let us know what you think. Leave a comment. And we will catch you guys next week.